Have you ever wondered how many dreams were lost in the shadows of history? How many brilliant minds changed the world yet their names disappeared into silence? Science has always been a battlefield of discovery where truth fights against time, tradition, and pride. But behind the loud voices of fame stand the quiet ones, the women whose genius rewrote the laws of nature yet never received the light they deserved. Tonight we will travel through centuries. We will step into the forgotten laboratories of brilliance. We will listen to the whispers of minds that refused to stop thinking even when the world refused to listen. This is not just a story of science, it is a story of courage and forgotten glory. Because for every name we remember there are 10 we never learned. These are the women who worked by candlelight, while others received medals under chandeliers. They discovered atoms and stars, they decoded life itself, yet history turned away. They were told you cannot, you must not, you should not. But they said I will. And so begins our journey into time, through dust and data, through silence and truth. To meet the souls who dared to think differently. The forgotten women of science. Hey everyone. I'm Muskan Barber, and you're watching Fact Zone, the channel where we explore the untold stories, lost legends, and hidden truths behind our world's greatest achievements. If you love discovering real stories that changed history, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and join the journey of knowledge and inspiration. Hypatia of Alexandria. In the ancient city of Alexandria, when the world was ruled by empires and gods, there lived a woman whose mind shone brighter than any temple flame. Her name was Hypatia. Born in the 4th century, she was the daughter of Theon, a philosopher and mathematician. From childhood she walked through marble halls filled with scrolls and equations. While men argued about faith, she searched for knowledge. She taught astronomy, mathematics, and philosophy to students from all over the known world. They called her the philosopher of light. At a time when women were expected to stay silent, she stood before great audiences and spoke of numbers, stars, and reason. Her voice was calm, her logic sharp as a blade. She taught that truth is not owned by religion or rulers, but discovered by those who dare to question. But Alexandria was changing. Fear was rising. The age of reason was giving way to the age of faith. And those who thought differently were branded as enemies. Hypatia refused to stop teaching. She continued to study the heavens, to chart the movements of planets, and to guide her students in pursuit of wisdom. But mobs filled the streets, hungry for power and blinded by hate. They accused her of sorcery and blasphemy. One morning, as she rode through the city, her chariot was stopped. The crowd dragged her into a church and ended her life with brutality. Her body was destroyed, but her ideas could not be burned. Centuries later, her name still echoes through the halls of learning. Hypatia became the first known female mathematician, philosopher, and astronomer in recorded history. She paid the price for thinking freely. She became a symbol of what it costs to be wise in a world afraid of wisdom. Ada Lovelace. In a world where machines had no mind and numbers ruled only paper, one woman saw the future before anyone else could even imagine it. Her name was Ada Lovelace. Born in 1815 in London, she was the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron, yet her world was not filled with verses and romance, it was filled with equations and dreams of logic. Her mother wanted her to stay away from imagination, but Ada's imagination became her greatest strength. From a young age, she studied mathematics under brilliant tutors and soon met Charles Babbage, the inventor of a mechanical device called the analytical engine. Most people saw it as a strange metal machine, but Ada saw something different. She saw a mind inside the machine. As she studied its workings, she wrote detailed notes explaining that this device could not only calculate numbers, but also compose music, draw pictures, and think in patterns. She had glimpsed the future of computers. Her writings became the first algorithm ever created for a machine. The world would later call her the first computer programmer. But society did not believe that a woman could think beyond arithmetic. They dismissed her as a dreamer and ignored her notes for over a century. It was only in the 20th century, when computers came alive, that her genius was finally understood. Ada Lovelace had imagined artificial intelligence before electricity powered homes. She saw what the world would become long before it arrived. She taught us that imagination and reason together can change the world. And that the mind has no gender, only vision. Marie Curie. In a small laboratory filled with the scent of chemicals and candle smoke stood a woman whose hands glowed with light and pain. Her name was Marie Curie. She was born in Warsaw in 1867, a time when her country was under Russian rule and women were not allowed to attend universities. But no law could imprison her hunger for knowledge. She moved to Paris and studied physics and chemistry at the Sorbonne. There she met Pierre Curie, and together they began an experiment that would change science forever. They discovered two new elements, polonium and radium. Marie named one after her homeland, a quiet act of rebellion and pride. Day after day she worked with dangerous materials, unaware that the glowing dust was burning her body. Her notebooks, her clothes, even her skin carried traces of radiation. But her focus was not on herself, it was on discovery. In 1903 she became the first woman to win the Nobel Prize. And in 1911 she became the first person ever to win 2 Nobel Prizes in different sciences, physics and chemistry. But even after all this the Academy refused to make her a member. Many scientists whispered that she was only successful because of her husband. Yet after Pierre's tragic death, Marie continued alone, raising her children and leading her research. She built mobile X-ray units that saved thousands of soldiers during the war. Her brilliance shone even as her health faded. She once said, "Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood." Her sacrifice became a light for generations of scientists who came after her. She showed that true discovery demands not only intelligence, but endurance of spirit. Lise Meitner. In the early 1900s, deep in a lab in Berlin, another woman stood surrounded by equations and silence. Her name was Lise Meitner. She was an Austrian physicist whose mind was sharp enough to split the atom, yet the world never gave her credit. Alongside her colleague Otto Hahn, she studied the mystery of how uranium behaved under neutron bombardment. Their experiments led to one of the greatest discoveries of all time, nuclear fission. It was the key that opened the door to atomic energy, and also to the atomic bomb. But before she could publish her findings, the world changed. War erupted. Lise was Jewish and Germany was no longer safe. She fled across the border in secret, carrying only her papers and her mind. From exile she continued her work, writing letters to Hahn explaining the theory that would earn him the Nobel Prize. Her name was never mentioned. The world celebrated him and forgot her. But Lise never claimed fame. She refused to build weapons or seek revenge. She called the bomb a tragic misuse of science. She believed that knowledge must serve life, not destroy it. Years later scientists would call her the mother of nuclear fission. Yet she lived and died with quiet dignity, knowing that truth outlives recognition. Her story reminds us that sometimes the greatest discoveries are written not in glory, but in exile. Chien-Shiung, woman who proved the world could tilt. In the heart of a world at war, a young girl from a quiet town in China dreamed not of fame, but of truth. Her name was Chien-Shiung. From the time she was a child, she looked at the sky and asked questions no one around her could answer. Why do things fall? Why does light move? What happens inside the smallest piece of matter? She left her home for America carrying nothing but a suitcase and the courage to dream. In a land where women were often told to assist rather than lead, she walked into the laboratories of Columbia University. Her eyes burned with purpose, her voice was calm, but filled with certainty. She did not seek attention, she sought precision, truth, understanding. When the world was at war, she helped the Manhattan Project refine nuclear processes. Her work silent, her name unspoken. She did it because knowledge mattered more than applause. But her greatest test came later. Two scientists, Lee and Yang, brought her an idea. They believed that one of the sacred laws of physics, parity, the idea that nature treats left and right as identical, might not be true. The world laughed at their theory. Wu did not laugh. She said, "Let us test it." She spent long nights in the cold chambers of the lab with cobalt atoms and magnetic fields. Her breath turned to mist, her hands trembled, but her focus never broke. And when the results came, the universe shifted. She proved that nature could choose sides. The mirror of reality had a flaw. The law of parity was broken. It was her discovery, her precision, her courage that changed physics forever. Yet when the Nobel Prize was awarded, her name was missing. The men who proposed the idea received it. The woman who proved it did not. But she smiled, that quiet, knowing smile of those who live for truth, not trophies. She once said, "I do not really understand why women are expected to be behind men. After all, the universe does not discriminate. Ask Katherine. If she says it is right, then we trust it." Her calculations guided John Glenn into orbit. And when Apollo 11 prepared to reach the moon, it was her math that drew the path through the void. Her hands shaped the road between the earth and the stars. She worked in silence, no spotlight, no applause. But inside that silence, she changed the course of human history. She showed the world that genius has no gender and no color. Imagine her standing by the chalkboard surrounded by white dust, writing equations that touched infinity. Her eyes glowing with certainty, her heart steady as gravity itself. The men who flew became heroes. But it was her invisible numbers that kept them safe. She once said, "We will always have STEM. Some things will drop out of the public eye and go away. But science, engineering and technology will always be here." She was right. Her work did not end when the rockets stopped. It lives in every launch, every orbit, every dream of reaching further. Katherine Johnson. The woman who took humanity to the moon without leaving the ground. Hedy Lamarr. In the glittering age of Hollywood where lights blinded truth, there was a woman who shone not only for her beauty but for her mind. Her name was Hedy Lamarr. People saw her on screens, but few knew that behind that smile was a mind filled with invention. At night while others danced, she drew blueprints. She imagined a way for signals to move unseen. She designed a system called frequency hopping. It could guide torpedoes in war without being tracked. The world ignored her. They said she was just an actress. But her idea became the foundation of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. She once said, "The world does not understand intelligent women." She was right. Yet time understood her better than her own century. Every time a phone connects, every time a satellite speaks, Hedy Lamarr's dream lives again. The woman who proved that beauty can hide a genius mind. Jocelyn Bell Burnell. In the dark silence of the universe, one young woman listened carefully. Her name was Jocelyn Bell Burnell. In a small observatory in Cambridge, she watched the sky not with her eyes, but with her instruments. Night after night, she saw lines of data printed on endless paper. Then she noticed a pulse. A sound repeating with perfect rhythm. Every second it returned like a heartbeat in the cosmos. She called it a little green man signal. But it was not alien, it was something no one had ever seen before. A pulsar. A star so dense it could crush mountains into dust, yet it sang across space. Her discovery changed astrophysics forever. But when the Nobel Prize was awarded, it went to her professor. Her name was missing. She stayed silent, but strong. Years later, the world realized its mistake. She received the recognition she had earned long ago. She smiled and said, "Science should be done for curiosity, not for prizes." Jocelyn taught us that greatness does not always wear a crown. Sometimes it just keeps listening to the stars. These women were more than scientists, they were warriors of truth. They proved that discovery has no gender, no boundaries, and no expiration date. Their courage became equations. Their pain became progress. Their silence became the sound of discovery. So, when you open a laptop, look at the stars, or connect to Wi-Fi, remember their names. Because their light still travels across time. The light that never dies. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Fact Zone, and share it with someone who believes in the power of knowledge. Let's make sure the world never forgets the women who built it. The world moves fast, names fade, monuments fall, but truth endures. I'm Muskan Barber, and this was Fact Zone, where forgotten stories find their voice again. See you in the next video, and until then, keep questioning, keep dreaming, and keep the light alive.
दरियाई चनाब में इजाफी पानी ना समो सका। अचंग के मकाम पर बिखर गया। जोरदार मौजों ने किनारे पार कर लिए। सैकड़ों एकड़ ज़रीर रकबा ज़ेर-ए-आब, जब कच्चा मघियारा